Hello, fourth grade parents. My name is Corey Jackson, and I am the instructional coach at Claremont School. I wanted to take a few minutes to share with you the reading and writing units that your children will be beginning this September. Our first reading unit is called Up the Ladder Reading, and it's a fiction unit. It focuses on some really great literature and starts to build some reading habits that are important for your children. One reading habit that we build is reading volume. It's so important to read, read, read. The more books we read, the more vocabulary that we know, the more text structure we're familiar with, and the more stories that we just own and love. The other thing that we work on is reading stamina. We really want students to be able to read for 30 uninterrupted minutes. We know that at the beginning of the year, sometimes that's tricky. So to help out, sometimes setting a timer really works. First, set it for 10 minutes and slowly inch your way up to that 30-minute uninterrupted time. It's also helpful to have a cozy reading spot. I think a lot of teachers have been sending this assignment home to find a cozy reading spot. It's a place where you're comfortable, where you can fall in love with a book, where you can be uninterrupted for those 30 minutes. Some of the skills that we work on in this unit are helping children make predictions. That's a review skill from last year. We also talk about envisioning and making that mental movie, because when we make that mental movie, it helps us remember the events of the story. But something new that we talk about in fourth grade is summarizing. And I don't mean summarizing the whole story. We talk about summarizing what events happened yesterday in my reading that are going to be important for me to carry on today. We do this as adults. When we go back to a book, and maybe we read it last night before bed and we're starting to forget, we skim back a little bit and we start to remember, oh yeah, and then our minds are ready to carry on. That's the kind of summarizing that we're teaching our fourth graders as they're diving into more complex text. We also teach them to start to grow ideas about their characters. So if I'm reading a story and my main character, Grace, is facing a lot of obstacles, and every time she faces an obstacle, she meets it head on, I might form the idea that Grace is the kind of character who perseveres through difficulty. As I read, I hold that idea in my mind, and I say, oh, again, she met this obstacle, she persevered. Or I might be surprised and say, wow, this is the first time Grace is meeting an obstacle and she's struggling. Those ideas help me to hold on to what's happening in the story. We also talk about self-monitoring. So when we're reading and it starts to make the senses breaking down and we're not quite sure what's happening, we have to stop and we have to do some kind of new learning, whether it's rereading our book, whether it's stopping just to think about what has been happening. Maybe it's that we were stuck on a lot of tricky words and we need to go back and figure out what those words meant. But the key here is that when meaning breaks down, we must stop and do something about it. The last piece of learning in this unit is about goal setting, really reflecting on what do I do really well as a reader and what is it that I need to continue to work on. Because we all have strengths in reading and we all have things that we can continue to work on. Our writing unit is also called Up the Ladder, and this writing unit is a narrative unit. It starts with the students writing stories about themselves, the thing they know best, and then it moves on into writing some realistic fiction. All along, we're focused on the arc of story. So stories, when you begin, you are introduced to the character, you're introduced to the setting, and you start to see some kind of trouble. As we continue on in the story, the trouble starts to get worse and worse until it reaches the climax where that trouble is the worst it's going to get. And then we have some kind of resolution or a solution. We want to see that in the stories that your children are writing. We teach them to write in 3 small moments: the beginning, the middle, when that trouble is really getting difficult, and then what is the solution. We teach them character development. What is your character like on the inside? What is your character like on the outside? And we teach them to move through the writing process again and again, coming up with seed ideas, writing a draft, revising, editing, starting again. We also focus on goal setting here. What do I do well as a writer? What is it that I need to continue to work on? And what is my plan to meet that goal? We are so excited to work with your children this year. We know that it is a different year, but I assure you that teachers are working so hard to make this year just as successful as any other. If you'd like to contact me with questions, concerns, or just to talk about reading and writing, you can reach me at cjackson@ossiningsd.org. I look forward to a fabulous year with your children. Talk to you again soon.